Leader of the Alliance for Change, Mr. Nigel Hughes. Co-founder of the Alliance for Change and Member of Parliament, Kevin Ramchitan. Member of Parliament, Kathy Hughes. Mr. Christopher Ryan, close friend of the Alliance for Change. Mr. David Patterson, Chairman of the Alliance for Change and Member of Parliament. Nicola Trotman, Chairperson of the Women for Change. Onyx Duncan, Chairperson of the Youth for Change. Ladies and gentlemen, and very importantly, Mr. Noel Holden, husband, life partner of that great lady we are here to honor this afternoon. A warrior, a mentor, a friend, a champion, an advocate, and more I can go on to describe that great lady. But first, ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to join me for a moment of silent tribute as we reflect on the life of Sheila Kohler. Please stand for a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, and thank you. Please take your seats. In the words of Sheila Kohler on good governance, I feel pretty sure that if I were to go around this room asking each and every one of you what you consider to be good living, well, will feature prominently in your answer, as with good health, the freedom to buy the things you desire, the freedom to go where you want. That was Sheila Kohler, Member of Parliament, our sister, our friend, our mentor, co-founder of the Alliance for Change. But to better tell you about our sister Sheila, I invite our co-founder, Kevin Ramchitan.
Thank you very much, Beverly. And I'm so happy and honored to be again at an event of this nature to remember this sister of ours who has made this party what it is and has created the conditions for especially women becoming even and striving even to be better women. We have to understand that Sheila came from very humble origins. Of course, it's a long, long time, 1948. And 1946. And then, of course, doing all the initial primary and secondary education, becoming a bright girl in a school. Well, what she was always about, in my opinion, was her curiosity in making society better. And what she did was to be what I have advised, especially the young people of this political party, and even in the PVP, from which party I came, is that we have to join organizations to get things done. The problem of the country, the problem of the community, the problem of the larger world will only be solved by human beings who know basically the organizational systems that cause the problem to begin with and the organizational systems that will solve the problem to end with. And Sheila became a member of so many organizations. Consumer Protection Association. She did a lot for people when my good friend Noel Holder eloped with her and went to Ibini and all of that. That's true. I'm going to tell you. She organized the people in the Ibini area. How to do homemaking. She was very good at music and all of that. And so she wanted to instill that wherever she went. And as she grew into this activist type, she started getting into bigger organizations. In early 2001, I think it was, she became a parliamentarian for the GAP WPA, was it? And I started seeing lots more of Sheila from that time, because I am one of the parliamentarians that have been there for almost 32 consecutive years now. And I had heard her on the radio station, I had heard her in other seminars and all of that. But when she came there as a parliamentarian, I was impressed immediately by two things: her charm and the fact that she wanted decorum at the parliamentary level. When we started rowing and so on, she would be the first to say, hold on a minute. And I was then a member of the PDP, and I agreed with her. But as she grew as a parliamentarian, she then became from that activist type to what I would call a visionary. She started inside of Parliament giving quite a lot of speeches, but outside of it too, doing a number of things by getting involved with observer missions to Cameroon, doing papers on privatization of telecommunication, I think, somewhere in St. Lucia, and also she went to Chile to give remarks. People were, and she was also an extremely good writer. And obviously, it is because she read. I have always made the remark, good readers make better leaders. And it is fundamental that that be understood, especially by the young people here, and even the old people too, that we will certainly be better leaders once we read. And more, as we started, this thing about chatting as to what the PPP is now doing, I was pretty much a critic of my PPP then. We became friends, especially after Raphael Trotman and me got very close in that parliament. Fortuitously, or probably deliberately, the World Bank decided that the three of us must go take a trip to Helsinki, Finland, on good governance, political parties, I think it was, and also parliamentary systems. And it was almost about a week in Helsinki we were. Now, we used to chat in Parliament and at the dining room area a lot about forming a new movement, because of course I was getting tremendous criticism after that 2002 Port Morant Congress. And I had seen that there might be an expulsion coming, because in that party you had very straight-jacketed people, not liberal Democrats. You had communists and Leninists. And so we started talking about the need for a major third movement. And she got pretty excited. Now, I knew that she was one who will support it. And so we started discussing. Sometimes we had meetings at her residence. We started discussing it in Parliament and at Raphael's place and so on. And then this meeting in Helsinki then put the three of us together, literally, in the hotel, fancy hotel. The people, well, when you're dealing with World Bank, you can get all the fancy facilities. And we had a lovely time. We had some tutors that came from even the English system. And we got to know a thing or two more than we had already known in relation to parliamentary structures, good governance, and so on. And also parties and the relevance of liberal democratic parties. And there is where that spark triggered, more or less, this thing that when we come back home, we'd have to do something. Well, of course, we came back. And in 2004, the year after, I was expelled from the PPP. And then the effort started more vigorously to ensure that we get ourselves together in a movement. I must tell you, the strategy of Raphael Trotman also was very instrumental and influential in arranging with a variety of groups a number of meetings in which members of those groups really gave us big time support. We also had other members, David Patterson, Kathy Hughes, and the circle then just widened. And I must say that it is not necessarily the three of us that created this AFC. It was a lot more people. But a good organizer behind that show really was Sheila Holder. She knew a lot of people. She knew a lot of influential people. And there is where you could have seen whatever she had worked hard for was now bearing fruit in her organizational capacity and in her capacity to argue the case for. I want to say that whilst in that parliament and after we had formed the movement, she becoming a co-founder with myself and Raphael Trotman, she did an amazing amount of work in that parliament from 2006 to 2011 when she died. She asked the most questions of the opposition at that point in time. Questions on corruptions with the pensions, questions of why it is that Linden can't have a radio station that Linden could control. You remember that? Privatization of the GPL and so on. It was, or there was one, the privatization of the telecommunication sector, sorry. And so many things that you rather wanted to know, is she really looking after Noel Holder? Because, you know, we had this thing. But Noel was a kind-hearted soul too, who said that, Kamraj, I want her to do as best as she could do. And she's doing fantastic. So he had the support from her husband and so on that indicated that that's directly where she should go. And then she started making some very important fundamental statements about democracy that I really loved. As a matter of fact, we used to share books together. And she, at one time, impressed the whole lot of Parliament with her statement coming, real democracy could only be attained when a program is devised to devolve power to the people, restore village government, local government. Real democracy can only prevail when systems are put in place to allow the judiciary and the National Assembly to be financially independent and so on. And then she started talking about the adaptation of the system for expenditure to be after consultation with everybody. Now, coming from her, I mean, I was very impressed because obviously she was doing a lot of work in relation to what this democracy must look like. And she really loved this country and wanted it to look like that. So from this ordinary activist, or you can say a special activist, she became someone who started talking about the bigger things for her country. And as the bigger things came along, she made sure that she could argue the case for it. She argued a fundamental case in Parliament for us, where the pensioners of this country, the genuine pensioners, were not getting their pension. And she did some analysis that she gave to us that showed that indeed there was massive corruption. That list of pensioners was not a genuine list. It was a fake list, almost 1/3 of the names. And some minister probably getting all the money every month. But she was also forceful to the extent whereby she would tell the speaker, you know, that very first term from 2001 to 2006, she would stand up to the speaker and tell the speaker a thing or two, what's on her mind. And we need people like that. You must be, of course, respectful, but forceful. And she was doing that. Of course, with all the work that she did, you have to commend her for making the time and doing all the readings and doing all the writings and doing all the activist organizational things, and also ensuring that her party that she helped created was not floundering. And she was always there, helping us out whenever we had our arguments inside of the party. She would be there. So I want to let it be known, Sheila Holder rose the ranks from ordinary activist to a visionary. And she should be remembered in that context. We sometimes forget what it is that those that have passed before or those that have passed on, what they did. But we have to have that culture of repeating, especially to our younger people, that these were her accomplishments. These were her workings as to achieving those accomplishments. And I can only say that I was a better person for having walked the journey with her in the AFC, in the Parliament, in Guyana. She must be congratulated for what she did for so many of us too. So I want to take finally this occasion to say that this party will be stronger for the lessons learned from our sister Sheila Holder. And I'm glad that at least we keep this recurring every year to ensure that her memory be there for us to understand and for her memory to be celebrated. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kimraj, for that reflection
you started to paint a very good picture of our sister or friend, Sheila Holder. In her words, and I described Sheila Holder earlier as a warrior, in her words, in Parliament on the 2011 budget, as a member of the opposition, it is not my duty to massage the ego of the Honorable Finance Minister, but to tell him like it is, that in a true democracy, the people's views matter. I get the impression that the reality offends rather than informs. The first point I need to make is that the Honorable Finance Minister, in holding down the House for some 3 hours, pushed the tolerance of MPs on this side when he chose to indulge extensive PR type commentary in his budget presentation. This is clearly unnecessary for elucidating the true intent of the budget. I therefore urge him to desist from this practice. I think those are the words, that we can almost hear Sheila's voice, making that presentation. In forming the Alliance for Change with Kemraj Ramjatan and Raphael Trotman, who is not here today, Sheila Holder set us on a path that we are all proud to walk. And we are all convinced that she is here, her presence, her very spirit is in this room with us and in our daily political activities. So to reflect a bit on Sheila Holder, the woman that held this party together, especially through its formative years, I invite Member of Parliament and someone who knew her very well, Cathy Hughes.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a sad occasion in many respects, and my deepest regret is that, especially for the young members of the AFC, that you didn't have an opportunity to know Sheila. I think when we look at what has transpired in Guyana post 2011, when Sheila departed and left us, to what we see today, we understand why we are where we are, just because we haven't had enough of the Sheila holders to really stand up and demand that we not be in the state we find ourselves in today. I think the word that was used by Kemraj was fearless. Sheila was definitely fearless and strong and of independent mind. She didn't start off by looking around to see how many people were going to be standing next to her, beside her, or even in front of her before she took a position on anything. She was really an independent person that felt very strongly about putting Guyana first and moving her other baby, the Alliance for Change, forward. I noticed the program talks about looking at her role in holding the AFC on course. And one of the qualities Sheila had is that there was no bones about what she would say to anybody. So if she felt Kemraj was a little out of line, I was out of line, Raphael wasn't doing enough, whatever it was, Sheila would tell you very frankly, in the very strong and most respectful way, so that after she had finished her say, you had nothing but to look at yourself and realize your faults and the commitment that she would give you that you had to do better. She was very, very good for the party because Sheila could relate to anybody at any level in any part of this country. I was fortunate to go with her on several outreaches. And in the beginning, when you would be hoping that we would do one outreach, maybe a weekend, Sheila would be pelting off to 2, 3 different places, walking up a hill, down a hill, around the corner, talking with all the women, encouraging them. And her attitude was always one of get up and go. What are you going to do about the problem? What is the solution? I'm not interested in just hearing what the problem is and all that is wrong. Well, what are you doing about it? She really was a remarkable person. And she felt very, very strongly about our right to be able to stand up and serve our country. I know as a mentor, she was a mentor to many. To me, I don't think I would have made that final step to quote unquote come out as a member of the Alliance for Change if it were not for Sheila. Because I'll be quite honest, my first year in the AFC, I worked behind the scenes. I was undercover. I was absolutely terrified. Cameron, I could see you remember. I was terrified in sitting at a press conference and saying, I am part of this AFC. I used to have a discussion with Sheila. Sheila, man, I can't do that. What about my business? What about this? I'm going to be blacklisted. I'm going to be ostracized. I'm going to be. And she would always say, quite rightly, you stand for what you believe in. And I remember one day her looking at me and saying, wait, how long you going to go along with this? I expect you, if you're dealing with our PR, to come to the press conference and show you're dealing with our PR. And I had to just bend my head and make sure I was at that PR conference and those meetings every week. Subsequent to her demise, I remember Camrad saying to me in the very simplest of ways, in true Camrad style, well, Cathy girl, you's one of the next women in this organization, so you better step forward. I was fortunate to have such a good mentor. And I admit that many times I have to reflect on what she stood for, because so often I want to run and hide. Just because we all know the assaults, the victimization, the cuss down gets to you. Sheila would be happy that we are still here 19 years on. I think she would be very, very disappointed in the tone of the parliament and what we see in Guyana today. In those days, we didn't have the resources we have today. And she, for one, would have advocated that more of it go to all groups of Guyanese, that it is better shared equally amongst all the citizens of this country. So we continue the fight. Between now and 2025, we have to fight. I think there's a person who said, if you don't fight, you don't win. So let us follow that mantra. And don't worry, we're going to hold our hands together as they scream against us, they push us down, but we're going to hold strong and we're going to walk the good walk. Let us at least be able to say at the end of 2025 that we gave it our all. We gave it all the time, all the resources, all the energy we could find to make this country a better place. If we work at it, we have an opportunity for something new and great. If we sit back and do nothing, we have what we have and a strong possibility of worse. So may Sheila continue to sleep with the angels and shine, and may we continue to learn from her the role model that she was, and from all she said to us, all she shared, may we learn from that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy Hughes, Member of Parliament. As we continue to reflect on our friend, our mentor, Sheila, the visionary, she had to be a visionary to get together with Kemraj and Noel and Raphael to start this movement of which we are so humbled yet proud to be a part of. But let us hear from Sheila herself.
And nearly 40 years of independence, we are psychologically a dispossessed people, running hither, thither, and yon, lacking national pride and disrespected regionally by our CARICOM partners. In calling this event to order, let me humbly state that the steering committee of the Alliance for Change has the goodwill, the passion, the commitment, the courage, and the integrity to facilitate the change so necessary to ensure the future happiness and prosperity of our people.
Good evening, residents of Scouton.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Of Scouton.
Good evening.
We have come here to wake you up. We have come here to shake you out of your slumber. We are here, however, to tell you that as a country, we are not where we ought to be.
We've spoken to some of the nurses, and we understand that their terms of employment are being arbitrarily changed by the ministry. They do not get the information. They're being robbed of their human rights. This is a violation of our Constitution, and we will continue to press this point until this recalcitrant government stops discriminating against this region. Sisters and brothers, when a tragedy like the one visited on us for the last umpteen years strikes a country, it is part of our nature to demand answers about how we allowed such hegemony to develop in our government. For the last 47 years, we have been trying to grapple with this senselessness. Yet, many sustain the political status quo that offered so little to them, yet took so much. This is the truth. More than 90% of the people voted to maintain the dominance of the PPP and the PNC until the AFC came on the scene 5 years ago. Why is old age pension so small? I tell you why. Because I have reason to believe there are thousands of phantom pensioners.
My sisters and brothers, we in the Alliance for Change have pledged that when we get into office, we will be reforming the Constitution to ensure that never again a president of this country abuses the people's power.
My sisters and brothers, my only purpose for doing that study was to ensure that old age pensioners get their just deserts. And I say to you, if you remove the fraud from the system, they can be given double what they're getting now. And if Priya Manik-Chan thinks that I'm going to be fearful of her threats and her nonsense, let her think again. I have a duty to defend the people of this country, and I do not fear easily. So let her take note.
As we said, Sheila Holder, the warrior. Sheila at her best. We so miss that voice, but it resonates in our hearts and in our minds. Sheila had two families. AFC family, family members in all 10 regions of Guyana and in the diaspora. But she had another family, of which she was immensely proud. Her husband, Noel Holder, and the children. But to speak about that family and how Sheila was the woman, was able to balance it all. I think that's the thing I admired most about her. Her ability to balance her political life, her business life, her family life, her relationship with friends. She was the master juggler of doing it all so effortlessly and making each person she touched feel as though they were special. And at that moment in time when you were talking with her, you knew you were in her orbit. There were no distractions. You were special to her at that point in time. But let me invite her husband, Noel Holder, to share some thoughts and some reflections on that other family, because Noel is a person who actually bridged the two families. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I was called last, I think it was Friday, by your chairman, he invited me to come and just be part of these proceedings. I smelled a rat. And then it was followed by the leader of the party calling me, I think, on Monday, telling me to be here. They didn't say I had to make any presentation. But bearing in mind what occurred last year, I suspected that I better prepare something. And when I came in, as you can see, I'm not on the program. But the chairperson told me that I will have to speak immediately after the presentation. Unfortunately, I prepared a few words. It is today 13 years since the transitioning to higher service of Sheila Valerie Agnes Holder on the 20th of November 2011. And she is sorely missed by her family and friends, and indeed probably the entire AFC community. Sheila saw her mandate as one to improve the standard of politics in Guyana. She abhorred the prevailing winner-takes-all approach, which she believed resulted in zero-sum growth, in which other countries in the world with far inferior natural resources have surpassed Guyana in development, human, institutional, infrastructural, and economic, largely as a result of this alienation and marginalization of large sections of the population by the incumbent regime. Elections being due in 2025, certain of our views on the electoral process might be relevant. In 2003, she was commissioned by the Organization of American States to prepare a report on the current situation regarding political financing in the country. In her report, she observed that in Guyana, political parties raise their financing wholly from private sources, as there is no public funding of political parties or their elections campaigns. This policy has seen the incumbent government misuse executive influence by engaging in favor treatment to a select number of private contractors, thereby robbing the treasury value for money in public projects, fund many engineering failures, exploit the state's machinery to gain campaign advantage, and provide opportunities for donors from the underworld to wield inordinate influence in government. The most glaring abuse is that of the state media, television, daily newspapers, and radio, the latter being monopoly controlled by the government. She noted that there is therefore a great financial disparity in favor of the government in the quantum of funds plowed into the national elections campaigns compared with the sum spent by opposition parties. and small parties become invisible in this milieu. Neither major party shows a willingness to divulge the sums they spent on national elections campaigns. She stated that in 1990, amendments were made to the laws of Guyana, Representation of the People's Act, limiting personal campaign finances to certain sums for each contesting political party. According to Section 121 of the Act, which was amended in 1990, following elections, political parties, election agents have 35 days in which to present returns to the Chief Elections Officer, disclosing on behalf of candidates and their parties all payments made by the party election agent, amongst the personal expenses paid by each candidate, all disputed and unpaid claims, all monies, securities, and equivalent of monies received for the management and conduct of the election, the names of donors and contributors, etc. Since the enactment of these regulations, Act 24 of 1990, they have neither been observed by contesting political parties nor enforced by the Chief Elections Officer. It was her view that with the Guyana Elections Commission, the governing electoral agency, being a political body appointed to reflect party representation based on elections poll proportionality basis, the prevailing undemocratic, lawless, and disorderly situation will spawn further social, political, and economic instabilities in a society that is heterogeneous in composition and has a history of racial insecurities. Those were her views in 2003, and today the situation remains much the same. In conclusion, Sheila affected the lives of most of those with whom she interacted in various ways. To her family, she was a wife, guide, counselor, mother, mentor, and of most importance to me, a confidant. She was a pleasant soul, always civil, classy, savvy, and peppery if rubbed the wrong way. Her life epitomized love, joy, peace, understanding, and consideration for others. We will cherish the moments we had with her and adore the memories of her smile, love, humility, and wise counsel. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel. You read a quote from her from 2003, and nothing has changed. It is as relevant today as it was when she said it in 2003. And so too is this excerpt I will take from her 2010 budget presentation. And again, like Noel, I say nothing has changed. Sheila, as she opened her 2010 budget presentation, said, "The days when the government's annual budget presentation to the National Assembly would cause high expectation are gone. The people's eyes have been opened to the sham that the annual budget and the parliamentary debates have become. This feeling, I believe, developed because people see no connection between what is painted in the finance minister's budget speech, the budgetary allocations, and the amelioration of their myriad problems. Nothing has changed." And so I will ask to come to the microphone someone who knew Sheila well as a friend, as the Guyanese, as someone who advocated always for the rights of the Guyanese people. I invite Mr. Christopher Ram.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you, the entire family of the AFC, for inviting me and giving me the honor to share some thoughts about the contribution of Sheila Holder, who I had the privilege of calling a friend. Today we honor her legacy. the legacy of a parliamentarian whose service went from April 2001 to September 2011 and transformed how we in Guyana understood principled opposition and evidence-based advocacy in Guyana. Her journey from GAP WPA parliamentarian to founding member of the Alliance for Change in 2006 reflected her evolving vision for Guyana's development and her unwavering commitment to serving the public interest with grace and determination. From her early days in Parliament, she set a standard of legislative diligence, and I do wish to emphasize that few have matched before or after. On May 9, 2002, she tackled 4 major pieces of legislation at a single sitting: the Guyana Tourism Authority Bill, where she astutely addressed ministerial powers and emphasized regional harmonization, the Sector Harmonization Law Bill, the Motor Vehicle and Transformation Bill, and the Water and Sewage Bill. That day exemplified what would become her trademark: thorough preparation, careful analysis, and the ability to connect specific legislation to broader national development issues and goals. My first encounter with Sheila Holder was during a GT&T application for tariff hearings before the PUC. Here she demonstrated her remarkable ability to transform complex technical proceedings into compelling public interest advocacy without ever resorting to populist rhetoric or personal attacks. This combination of technical mastery and principled advocacy would characterize her entire career. Through 2003 and 2004, she intensified her focus on structural reform. Her contributions to the Fiscal Management and Accountability Bill debates and her work on the Revenue Authority Amendment Bill reveal her growing emphasis on financial accountability and transparency. During the February 19, 2003 National Crisis Debate, she emerged as a voice not just for change, but for measured, thoughtful reform. Her analysis of governance was consistently backed by comparative research. Guyana ranks at the second to last on the totem pole of Latin America and Caribbean countries, she noted, methodically documenting deficiencies in voter participation, political stability, press freedom, and campaign finance. Yet even those stark assessments were delivered with professional restraint and a focus on solutions rather than blame. Her work on oversight bodies was particularly noticeable. In parliamentary committees, she persistently pushed for the establishment of the Public Procurement Commission, or what it has become now, understanding that oversight wasn't just about catching wrongdoing, but rather the prevention of it. She worked tirelessly on the Committee of Appointments, fighting for the establishment of critical oversight bodies like the Rights Commission and their tribunals. Her January 25th, 2011 budget presentation, which I think has been referred to earlier, demonstrated her mastery of the evidence-based advocacy. She delivered a devastating analysis of pension administration anomalies, showing how a 30% increase in pension numbers suggested serious systemic issues. When challenged, she stood firm but grateful. I will retract nothing, Mr. Speaker. I am prepared to give this study to the Minister, Honorable Minister, and to the Auditor General without personalizing it. I have to say, I think she really got the better of the minister known for her feral blast. Her critique of public service reform was equally precise. She exposed how the contract worker system, which has only got worse, sadly, spawns unfair treatment of workers, marks the payment of huge salaries to favorite friends and families of the government members, and undermines the public service system. She pointed out specific injustices while maintaining focus on systemic issues rather than personal attacks. Her analysis of institutional failures was particularly incisive. She exposed how government's decision-making process was slow and opaque and has an extraordinary number of issues for resolving. Cabinet or in the office of the president, a process that is not open to public scrutiny. Yet even these criticisms were delivered with her characteristic focus on improvement rather than blame. Sheila's commitment to comprehensive reform was evident in practical proposal. For unemployment, she advocated upgrading technical schools to provide vocational training in such areas as carpentry, computer repairs, hospitality management. For regional development, she specifically recommended the creation of jobs in the hinterland, for instance, in Region 8, the revitalization of the peanut and cashew industries. Each critique was matched with concrete solutions. In healthcare, she called for systemic change, noting the glaring omissions in the plans for the health sector, the absence of a strategy to retain the large numbers of doctors, nurses, and other health workers being trained at great cost to the Treasury. She strongly recommended a patient's Bill of Rights, showing her consistent focus on practical reforms to benefit ordinary citizens. What truly set Sheila Holder apart, in my view, wasn't just the breadth of her legislative engagement or the depth of her analysis, but the grace and humility with which she pursued reform. Even when delivering her harshest critiques, she maintained professional courtesy and focused on issues rather than individuals. In an era of increasing political polarization, she showed that one could be both principled and kind, both determined and dignified. Her vision for democracy was comprehensive. Real democracy, she insisted, could only be attained when a program is devised to restore power to the people, restore village government, and hold regularly timely local government elections. Real democracy could only be attained when systems are in place to allow the judiciary and the National Assembly to be financially independent of the government. Throughout Sheila's career, she demonstrated that effective opposition required more than mere criticism. Whether addressing pension anomalies, public service reform, or health sector challenges, she combined thorough research with practical proposals, always maintaining her characteristic grace under pressure. She showed that one could be both fierce in advocacy and gentle in approach, both determined in purpose and dignified in method. What distinguished Sheila Holder further, in my view, wasn't just what she achieved, which is quite considerable, but how she achieved it. She proved that humility could be a source of strength, that courtesy need not compromise conviction. In committee rooms and on the floor of the National Assembly, she showed that one could be both principled and courteous. She never sought the spotlight, never promoted herself, never let ego interfere with the serious work of serving the people. In my view, and I speak to the party, its members, and indeed all Guyanese, what all members and indeed all Guyanese can offer is not just to remember Sheila's words, but to emulate her approach. To pursue reform with both determination and grace, to fight for principle without abandoning courtesy, to serve the public interest without seeking personal glory. On the areas in which she truly, in my view, excelled, we as a nation are still lacking, and particularly in this question of campaign financing, where democracy can easily be bought by shady money. I think there is work to be done. I think in terms of her advocacy for consumers, the work that has been done has retrogressed. We don't have a valid and viable consumers association. And I'm not trying to take away anything from the honor bestowed on the current president of the Ghana Consumers Association, probably for the past 20 years. These are matters I would truly exhort not only the WPA, but every one of us in Guyana to ensure that the work that Sheila Holder dedicated her life to is carried on with conviction, determination, and grace, as she herself did. She showed us what public service at its best can be. May we prove worthy of her example. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I take it back.
Thank you, Mr. Christopher Ram, for stirring the memory pot. Sheila the warrior, Sheila the fearless, Sheila the mentor, the friend, the advocate. Ladies and gentlemen, Sheila had another side to her also. And I invite you to look to that photograph we have of Sheila on that table. And in that photograph, you will see an impish smile. Impish. Because she had a lighter side to her that made her that totally rounded woman that we all admire. And so we will take a lighter moment and we ask Andrew to come forward with his musical rendition. Andrew? You see, Andrew is multi-talented, you know. He's a cameraman, he does the lighting, the streaming, and now he's going to do some music. Dance to Andrew?
Thank you so much, Madam Chairperson. Now, I remember Sheila Holder as a young reporter. At the time I was with HTP Nightly News. And oh man, she was at the back bench. She may be at the back bench, but her voice would be way out past the government. She had a great voice. As you heard it in the video, you saw it there. You had this aura to English. Oh, she was beautiful. And so I'm going to sing a song in her honor. It's called Friends Are Friends Forever by Michael W. Smith. Picking up the dream God's planted in the fertile soil of you. I can't believe the hopes He's granted. Means a chapter in your life is true. Well, we keep you close as always. It won't even seem you're gone. 'Cause our hearts in big, small ways will keep the love that keeps us strong.
And friends are friends forever. If the Lord's a Lord of them. And the friend will not say never, 'cause the welcome will know them. Though it's hard to let you go, in the farthest hands we know that a lifetime's not too long to leave his friends. You believe that? Yeah. It's the faith and love God's given, springing from the hope we know. Be the way, the joy you live in. Is the strength that now we show. But we keep you close as always. It won't even seem you're gone. 'Cause our hearts in big and small ways, they keep the love that keeps us strong. Yeah, yeah. And friends are friends forever. If the Lord's a Lord of them. And friends will not say never, 'cause the welcome will know them. It's hard to let you go. In the Father's hands we know. And the lifting's not too long to leave us friends. And friends are friends forever. If the Lord's a Lord again. And friends will not say never, 'cause the welcome will know them. Though it's hard to let you go, in the Father's hands we know that the lifetime's not too long to leave us friends. Don't leave us friends. Though it's hard to let you go, in the Father's hands we know. Lifetime's not too long to leave us friends. Lifetime's not too long to leave us friends. To leave us friends. Thank you.
Wow, just wow. Where did that come from? Oh my gosh, I think all of us enjoyed it. Yeah, yes, another round for Andrew. You know, the party gonna start soon. Sheila, the lady, the legend, to tell us more and to share some remarks on his, interaction with Sheila. I invite our leader, Mr. Nigel Hughes. And I know Nigel cannot better Andrew. Challenge Toronto.
Ladies and gentlemen, the new Minister of Culture, Mr. Andrew Weeds. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a really special occasion for me. As you know, I only recently got elected leader of the Alliance for Change. There's an old saying that if we stand tall today, it's because we stand on the shoulders of those that have gone before us. And the Alliance for Change is where it is today because of the contribution of Sheila, Kimraj, and Raffle. They broke the mold in 2006. It was the first third-party in the Caribbean to get 5 seats. It has not happened anywhere else. It is not that it wasn't tried anywhere else, but it did not happen anywhere else. But not only was that, like Usain Bolt, history making, it has never been repeated anywhere else except by the Alliance for Change. A lot of people underestimate or perhaps undervalue the significance of that feat, where the Alliance for Change, led by Sheila and those two gentlemen, achieved what they did. And one can understand why Sheila was as committed as she was, got there. She came from the Working People's Alliance, which was perhaps the first party to challenge the hegemony of the two ethnically based parties, or parties that were perceived to be ethnically based. And the Working People's Alliance, as we all know, in the late 70s, under the work of Dr. Rodney, began to articulate that there was actually another way forward. Sheila took that passion, and clearly, by the time 2005 came about, it was evident that the country was struggling for a new way. And we are fortunate that events conspired at that time to allow Kemraj to part ways with the People's Progressive Party, Raphael to part ways with the People's National Congress, and Sheila to part ways with the Working People's Alliance. I know a lot of you don't remember, but at the time, there was a big debate over whether they should give up the seat, whether the seat belonged to them or whether it belonged to the party, and they were maligned in typical Guyana fashion, maligned. Sheila probably thought that the political culture of the country was at its lowest in those days because she represented, and one of the reasons she stood out was because, as Chris has said repeatedly, that this was a dignified woman that believed in grace, that believed in politeness, that believed that we could disagree as strongly as we wish, but there's absolutely no reason to be abusive, disrespectful. And she epitomized that. She never surrendered that, never, ever. Now, she got attacked for being many things. Middle class, doesn't have a sense of what's going on in the working people. And despite all those vile attempts and attacks on her, she maintained her grace, her dignity, but most importantly, she was forthright. Those are qualities that are rare these days. And I shudder to think what Sheila would have done, said, or how she would have reacted if she was in the National Assembly on the day when somebody spoke about a sexual instrument in an attack on a colleague member of Parliament on the opposing side. Why that is so sad is because we have reached a stage now where we don't speak to each other anymore. Parliament is not a place for engagement, not a place for engagement. And what is significant about what you've heard throughout the history of Sheila, especially from Kemraj, was that even when they were in different parties, they engaged. So Kemraj was in the People's Progressive Party, she was in the WPA GAP, Raphael was in the People's National Congress. They found a way to engage for what? The better interest for Guyana. That is an awesome commitment, because to be committed to Guyana over and above either your personal interest or your party interest is a very, very commendable trait. And she had that. And it has been repeated constantly. One of the tragedies of our time and of Guyana's time since independence, there are a couple of words that repeat themselves. There are a couple of complaints, there are a couple of differences, there are a couple of real grievances that are repeated year after year, decade after decade, that have always put us in the position where we probably have not moved much further. One of them is, you don't hear this word anymore, is potential. From the time you were in school, growing up, you always heard the country had potential. And I assume now we are seeing that potential. But I want to share Sheila's words with you about what she had to say about the fundamental problem of Guyana. And I'll just read these few words to you. She said, and this was in her final presentation on the national budget of 2011, when she said the following, quote, "Imagine telling us that they have adopted principles of inclusivity when large sections of our society continue to express feelings of exclusion, describe their experiences of discrimination and being denied equal treatment and equal opportunity in their profession and business. How could a member on that side of the House speak so brazenly about good governance when they have been dilly-dallying for a decade on establishing the Public Procurement Commission and the Human Rights Commission?" 2 points I want to raise about that. We are now in 2024. Yes, we have got the Public Procurement Commission, and we see the difficulties. So it's not, the challenge isn't just setting up the institution, is actually getting it to operate the way it should. But more importantly, can you imagine a country that in 2024, after having passed constitutional reform in 2001 to 2003, in which it said that we will establish a human rights commission, a human rights commission. No more important words than human rights. And we said that we will establish that. And up to today, we have no human rights commission, none. But it's not just that we don't have a commission. It is that the commission is the only body empowered under the Constitution to enforce your treaty rights that are given to you under various treaties signed by this country, ratified by this country, and listed in the Constitution, and you can't enforce a single right. Sheila said that in 2011. We collectively have no national embarrassment that we could be in 2024 and not have that commission. But if you go back to what is perhaps our most fundamental challenge, and that she mentioned then, and it is not that it started then, it started before, and it continues to plague us worse today, where she said that they describe their experiences of discrimination and express feelings of exclusion. That was Sheila in the year she passed. And if you walk into most communities and ask people how they feel, they will tell you they feel excluded. They will tell you they feel discriminated. And it's not only on the basis of ethnicity, it is the basis on the basis of economics, it's on the basis of class, and it's on the basis that they see their children not actually having any role in the future of this country other than second-class citizenship. And that is a frightening place to be in a time of plenty. And Sheila spoke about it. And if you go, as we have been doing, to the marketplace, to the communities, every single one of them will tell you that the number one issue in the country is the cost of living. Guyana was poor then. We were rivaling Haiti in 2011 at the bottom of the barrel. Now we are at the top of the world, and our people still continue not to be able to afford the basics in life because they don't have the ability to purchase the basics. That is the greatest indictment on our time. And Sheila pointed this out to us a long time ago. I would not go over her amazing achievements. You've heard that today from all the people that have presented. I wasn't here when the party was started. As a matter of fact, I had a healthy degree of skepticism because my wife came home and I said to her if she knew what she was doing. Probably that's why she didn't want to go to the press conferences. But today, I am the best beneficiary of the sacrifice that Sheila made. I can actually have the privilege of leading this party and being charged with the responsibility of taking forward her dream. She was the founder. We are just those in place today. And I beg of all of us, not just here in the country, let us, like Sheila, put Guyana first. Let us put Guyana first. Let us commit to Guyana and to its citizens so that we can ensure, or at least fight, to at least work towards ensuring that each and every citizen in this time of abundance, in this time of plenty, have, in her words, equal treatment and equal opportunity. She said in their profession and business, I would only ask for equal treatment and equal opportunity. May her beautiful soul continue to soar above us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nigel. You know, I'm listening to Nigel, totally caught up in what he is saying. And I'm sitting at the back there and I'm thinking, what if? What if Sheila was here at this time, standing alongside Nigel as we move this party forward? What if? But in our hearts and in our minds, she lives on. And so to my AFC family, I urge you, like Hemraj and Chris and Nigel, let us emulate the qualities of Sheila so that we, each of us here, can say, on the 20th of November, 2024, we sat with the future president of Guyana. You heard me? You heard me? We sat with the future president of Guyana. Because if we bring our energies, if we emulate Sheila Holder, we have the next president of Guyana. If we work the way Sheila worked, we have the next president of Guyana. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we will be taking tributes from the regions 1 to 10. But before we take the tributes from Region 10, we have tributes coming in from the women's arm of the Alliance for Change, Women for Change, from the youth arm of the Alliance for Change, Youth for Change, and from the USA Diaspora Group. And so I invite now chairperson of the Women for Change, or vice chairperson, my very own friend, my gal, my buddy, Camille Cox. Thank you, Bill.
Have you knelt before the rubble of a aching, broken heart? Have the things you gave your life to fall apart? You're not the first to be acquainted with heartaches, grief, or pain. When the lines you gave your life to fall in the rain. Hold on, my child. Joy comes in the morning. Weeping only lasts for a while. Hold on, my child. Joy comes in the morning. The darkest clouds mean dawn is just inside. Dedicated to you, Mr. Holder. Hold on, my child. Joy comes in the morning. Weeping only lasts for a while. Hold on, my child. Joy comes in the morning. The darkest cloud means dawn is just inside. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we start in a band, right? I think we got to tell we're going to start a band. So that was tribute and song from WFC. And now I invite the secretary, Frank, from the YFC to give the youth tribute. And I can tell you, Frank was here very early. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you. All right, all protocols observed. As Mr. said, Chairperson, my name is Frank Noble, the General Secretary for the Youths for Change, and I'll be giving the tribute for the YFC to Sheila Holder. For Sheila Holder, sorry. 13 years have passed since we lost a true champion of democracy and social justice. Excuse me. Sheila Holder, her unwavering commitment to public service and her tireless efforts to improve the lives of Guyanese contribute to inspire us. Sheila Holder was a visionary leader who fearlessly championed the rights of the marginalized and the oppressed. Her intelligence, eloquence, and unwavering spirit made her a formidable force in Ghana's political landscape. She was a tireless advocate for democracy, human rights, and social justice. She would also be advocating for more women to stop and step forward to be part of political movements and going forward as women helping in the shaping of any organization. As we reflect on her legacy, we are reminded of the unwavering dedication to public service, her contributions to the Alliance for Change, and her tireless efforts to build a better Guyana will forever be etched in our hearts and in our minds. Let us honor her memory by continuing to fight for the ideas and champion equality and a brighter future for all. As Mr. Niger would say, better must come.
Thank you, Frank. You know, Frank and Onyx, who is here, and Trina and a few other young people, they would not have had the opportunity, sadly, to interact, interface directly with Sheila. But it is such a great thing that they can read about her, they can come, listen as others who would have had that opportunity speak about her, so that they can understand this family that we call the AFC. And so now I invite Andrew, do we have the USA chapter ready to pay tribute? Ewart Marshall.
Wow, can you hear me? Hello?
It's barely hearing. Hold on.
Can you hear me? Hello?
We're hearing you, Ewart, but we're trying to up the volume a bit.
Okay. Can you, any better? How is that?
Great, Ewart, great.
You can hear me now.
Perfectly.
Is that it? Can you hear me? Because
Please
I
go
can't
right
hear you.
ahead,
Can't
Ewart.
hear you. But I'll say my words. So, I'll say what I have to. Well, it's an honor to be asked to participate in this event. At one moment I'm sad that Sheila's not here, but I'm also encouraged. Part of me is happy that the Alliance for Change, something she created, has been able to endure. You know, when Sheila passed away, it was a very sad time for me. Because Sheila was the one that invited me into the Alliance for Change. I remember in September of 2005, I believe it was, September. She called me, almost in a panic, saying that the person who was supposed to help the AFC with their website, couldn't, wasn't really doing the job, and she needed, she had an emergency, and if I could look into it. So, I thought, let me do what I could. I met Sheila and Noel, some years before, and they really inspired me, with their energy and, their intelligence and all that they, were doing for Guyana. So I said, let me play my small part. One of the things that, come to mind is that, Sheila was an inspiration. She was a person who lived with her life through integrity, thoughtfulness, and courage. All of the things that people should try to thrive for. A few weeks ago, I had a run-in with one of our old members, and I said some pretty harsh words to him, and almost immediately it came to mind. If Sheila was around, she would not be happy with the way I was addressing this or dealing with this person in our disagreement. And that's the sort of influence she had, not only on me, but I'm sure on everyone else. Those of us, those of you in the audience, myself, we had the honor of meeting Sheila face to face and getting to know her. And it's a little bit sad that the young people, those in the YFC, some of the new members, didn't have a chance to meet Sheila and talk with Sheila and be mentored by Sheila. But it's a good thing that her memory, that her example endures, so much so that we can think back to how she would behave, how she would operate, what would Sheila think in certain moments. And that's a testament to her endurance and her very, very great qualities. So on behalf of the AFC USA, I pledge that, I'll give my utmost effort and model our service to her example. I'm honored to have been invited into the AFC by Sheila. Her memory is cherished by colleagues, constituents, and all those who seek to continue her vision for a better Guyana. Noel, Kayla, if you're there, Nigel, Kemraj, David, Kathy, Bev, and all of those in attendance. We really, really have work to do. And I would say let's use Sheila as the example of dedication and energy that she was then. We certainly can fuel our work now. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ewart Marshall, chairperson of the USA chapter of the Alliance for Change. Andrew, do we have anyone from Region 1, 2, any of the 10 administrative regions? Do we have anyone? Okay, so we come to Onyx, Region 4 in the house.
East Coast. All protocols observed. My name is Onyx Duncan, Vice President of the Youth for Change and Chairman of the Regional Management Committee, Region 4, East Coast, Demerara. I want to share a piece that I wrote. It's called Memories. Memories are precious. Memories are given to us by God as a keepsake and a treasure. Memories help us to look back on things good or bad without reliving it. Memories make us laugh or cry. Memories help us to reminisce on old experiences. Memories support us as we step into our future. Memories warn us about what things should never be allowed to happen again. If we broaden our knowledge and open our minds, memories allow and offer and teach and warn about life. Memories are gifts of the past that we hold in the present to create what can be excellent in the future. A woman of change, a woman of vigor, a woman full of zest. Sheila Holder, co-founder and mother of the Alliance for Change, left behind a profound legacy marked by her unwavering commitment to justice, equality, and empowerment of the marginalized. Sheila's life was a testament to the power of activism, fueled by a deeply rooted passion for change. Sheila's courage, tenacity, and dedication inspired countless individuals to join the fight for a fair society, advocating for the rights of those often overlooked. Tiny but mighty, with a vivacious spirit and a sharp intellect, Sheila worked tirelessly to challenge the status quo and uplift her community. Her visionary leadership and unrelenting pursuit of meaningful reform mobilized countless voices, fostering a movement that continues to resonate. As I reflect, and I remember when I started to pay close attention to politics, I was drawn closer to politics by women, unfortunately. And Sheila Holder and Deborah Bakker was those two women that I pay close attention to. And I remember her not as only as a leader, but as a beacon of hope and resilience. Sheila's impact will endure in the hearts of those she inspired and the progress she championed. As we honor her memory, let us carry forward her legacy by continuing the work she so passionately embraced. Sheila Holder will forever be remembered as a guiding light in the realm of social justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Onyx. I have renewed hope having heard from Onyx. So many apt adjectives used to describe Sheila at this afternoon's gathering. In Region 7, I understand. Oh, Region 7, Laura, our advisor on all things related to Indigenous life and peoples. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you, Beverly. Good night, everyone. So I was asked by my boss, And then I was curious because I know that we were going to have a tribute for Sheila Holder. And the more I read, I realized that, wow, if I had known her then, I think we would have loved each other. Because I'm reading about her and like, oh yes, I would have really loved this about her. Wow. And then I also realized that, will I ever be able to fit into her shoes? Because here is a woman who's adored, who's respected by so many. And I realized that, well, she couldn't have been here and be here for nothing. She couldn't be here and be nothing, and have it not, we behind cannot have it in vain. And I read an op-ed, which was done by Raphael Trotman in, I can't remember the year. I think it was 2018 or 2019. And again, I was in awe at the tribute that was made to her. Mr. Holder, I've never met you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me. And I just want to read a part of the op-ed that I really wanted us to remember, which I have heard tonight and which I resonate with because, as I said, reading all the information about Sheila Holder, I realize, yes, this is what it is. So part of the op-ed says, the AFC filled a political vacuum that was necessary to be filled in 2006. And Sheila filled a vacuum within the AFC that only she could fill. Even now, she remains irreplaceable, and we miss her daily. As we enter into another cycle of political uncertainty and confusion, it is the quiet guiding voice of Sheila Holder that we remember as we tread our way forward carefully and purposefully. There is always going to be a vacuum to be filled. And if not by us, then someone or something will. Let us step into the next exciting challenge with purpose and a plan, as Sheila would have advised we do. We in the AFC will always be grateful for the gift of Sheila Holder and for the everlasting structures that she built. The politics of Guyana have been transformed by the contribution of those like herself who came, acted, and left. So, I think Onyx said earlier, it is us to carry on the legacy that they have left. And I hope that we can really meet those and not disappoint her. And I am happy to be here. Nigel, thank you for having me. Thank you to Sheila and to many of you. Camaraj, I'm told not to say Mr. Ramjitan and not to say Trotman, Mr. Trotman. So thank you, Camaraj, and thank you, Raphael. Thank you.
And thank you, Laura. We will now have Camille will return to pay tribute on behalf of Region 6, to be followed by Lillian, who will pay tribute on behalf of Region 9. Camille?
Good evening. My name is Camille Mackenzie, RMC Chair from Region 6, East Berbice, Quarantine. There's nothing much that I can really say about Mrs. Holder that everybody else haven't said before. But I can remember when I joined the AFC in 2006, when I first met her, all she said to me is, do not give up. That's all. And that is the only thing she had ever said to me. I could remember it was a night like tonight, we had a rally at Shoe Lane in New Amsterdam when the news came to us that she has passed. And even though I didn't know much of her, I felt so bad. And the whole rally that night, it was damp. The rain fell and it made it worse. It was really, really a mourning time for us. But we did pick ourselves up. Raphael was there, David, Nigel was there, because I can remember having to do a couple of things. And I want to say thanks to her for leaving those few words with me. Do not give up. So I stand here on the behalf of Region 6, Regional Chair, to pay tribute to Miss Sheila Holder, the mother of the Alliance for Change. We will never forget her. For me, if it wasn't for those words coming from her, I don't think I would have been here. Thank you.
Thank you, Camille. Like Camille, you were, so many of us came to the AFC through Sheila Hold. I myself joined the AFC because of my interaction with Sheila Hold while I was wearing another hat. Tribute now from Region 9, Lillian.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My voice is not that clear, but I'm here on behalf of Region 9 to give a tribute to Miss Sheila Holder. Tonight, we gather on a very special occasion, a night of reflection and gratitude for the remarkable life and legacy of Miss Sheila Holder, the visionary founder of the Alliance for Change political party. In reflection of her life, we are reminded of her unwavering dedication. She taught us that true leadership is not about power, but about service, service to the people, to the community, and to the ideas we hold dear. Her ability to connect with people from all walks of life, her empathy, and her spirit made her a beloved leader and a cherished friend to many. As we celebrate her life tonight, let us also pledge to carry forward her vision. Let's nurture the seeds she planted and continue to fight for the fair and just society she visioned. Each one of us, by embodying her value and her principle, can make a difference, just as Ms. Holder did. In closing, let us remember that while Ms. Holder may no longer be with us, in body, her spirit remain a guiding light to all of us. May her passion for justice and equality continue to inspire us as we work together to build a future where everyone's voice is heard, while change is embraced and where unity prevails. I would like to leave a quote from one of her speech at the launching of the AFC in 2025. This is one of my favorite quotes, and 2005, sorry. And this is where whenever I watch this video, this is where I get my courage from, where she said, "The winds of change is blowing." And as an Indigenous woman, I know it's not easy to fill her shoes, but as we go forward, I know that we will make her proud. So thank you for having me here tonight.
Thank you, Lillian. I think Sheila looking down on us would be so proud, so pleased, so happy to know that we have such strong young people, who prepare to work with us and take this party forward. We will now invite tributes from the floor. Is there anyone here who would like to remember Sheila in your own way? Mike Carrington, of course, the vice chairman of the Alliance for Change, had a very good relationship with Sheila.
May peace and blessings of God be upon you all and upon this special day for Sheila Holder, who had passed away in 2011. We all had loved her very much. Me and her always ding dong battle. Over the years, I battling with everybody over and over, but we will fight today. And tomorrow she will call me and say, Michael, we have to go into this area, go into that area. I think I was the person with her most of the time in the fields. All across Guyana, she always called on me. When I run against Kemraj in 2011, she said, Michael, is what you're doing? I said, I already spoke to Kemraj. And I told him that the party must have a system where members must run against leaders. We must have a democratic process, and no one must be afraid to run against any leader in the party. He said, Michael, step down. You have to step back. I said, no, Sheila, I'm not stepping back. I'm not stepping back. And I ran against Kemraj. And that particular election, I gained majority of my, fame. Because it hit the newspaper. I lost, I totally lost, but I get endless fame. So I will encourage our members not to be afraid of leaders. Leaders come and go, and we have to have members to fit in their place sometime or the other. So we work all over, and let me tell you something, she stands for what is right. She will never bend over to please wrong. She never did that. She will always argue, and I always, from since then to now, I stay the same way. If I feel something is wrong, I will say it is wrong, and I will never bend over. Everybody, I don't care what. I could take my abusing, I will talk to you next day, get off with you and say, watch, I still going in this direction. So we all need to follow her footstep. One of the areas which she pushed was the decentralization of the system of governance in the regional system. She wanted the system to properly work, where the regions work properly, the NDC work properly. Up to today, we cannot have it working properly. They are basically puppet of the state, and we have to change that. As long as we change the regional system of governance, Guyana will manage properly. It gives the people on the ground opportunities in all the village, in all the regions, right up to the top. So we must follow her footstep. As long as we follow her footstep, 2025 will be victorious for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mikey. I told you Mikey and Sheila had a special relationship. Is there any other tribute from the floor? Colin Haynes. Glad that Colin is, back home for a few days, a few weeks. How long is it going to be, Colin?
Another week.
Another week.
Yeah,
Glad to have
big trip. Good night, everybody. It's good to see everyone. Well, I have never met Sheila Holder, but I actually was looking back at an email. I've talked to her a few times virtually. So I remember being a young kid in college, and I wrote this paper on drug trafficking, and I wanted the leaders, Mr. Amjitan and Trackman, to get the thing. So I looked up and I saw her email. I sent an email to her, and I got back a response. She said, thank you so much. But I just want to say, from thinking about that email conversation I had with her maybe 1 or 2 times, and what everybody said here tonight, it just verifies that she was indeed a great person. She was a fighter. And so I'm very happy that we can have this kind of culture in the party. I remember I myself from time to time would get a little sporadic. And I remember Mr. Ramjitan would tell me, this is what our party is about. This is what liberal democracy is about. It's about us challenging each other, criticism, no holds bar, but respectful. And also to understand that at the end of the day, there's no malice. You know, we can go at it, but at the same time, at the end of the day, we eat, we drink, we work together. And so I'm very happy to be part of this culture for the better part of 10 or 17 years now. And long live not only the Alliance for Change, but the legacy of Ms. Sheila Holder. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Colin. You know, so much is being said about Sheila Holder, you know, a life well lived, you know, a life lived to the full. Personally, for me, God, it's Sheila was so committed to the AFC. She had such strong belief in the AFC. In my first interactions with Sheila, you know, I was wearing a different hat, not in politics. And I was an emissary on behalf of another group. The country was heading into elections. And the group I was representing basically was thinking that here is another guy who might be a better presidential candidate. So that was my message to Sheila. And she gave me that look, you know, and said to me, but why must we do all the hard work and then hand it over? I stepped back. If you can step back in a chair, I stepped back because I was in Sheila's office. And it made absolute sense. Because the AFC was really rising in fame. They were being recognized. But Sheila so absolutely believed in the AFC that it doesn't matter who else thought that someone else, some other prominent individual should jump into the leader's seat. She believed in the AFC. And that was my personal interaction with Sheila Holder. And I cherish it. Because when you believe in something that strongly, you work towards it. I will now invite Chairperson of the Alliance for Change, Member of Parliament, David Patterson, to give the closing remarks.
Thank you, Beverly. Good night, everyone. Noel, Sheldon, families. Chris, good to see you back home. Yes. I mean, I was surprised no one mentioned that you know, I mean, Chris could be numbered among the members of the Alliance for Change. You know what I mean? Yeah. So we're here this evening to reflect on the life of a great woman. And I just want to quickly sum up some of the sentiments that we would have heard about our great companion, Sheila. Consumer advocate, Chris mentioned that, and that's my first impression before I even met Sheila. I could recall her writing articles in the paper as a consumer advocate. To be honest, I don't think there's any consumer corner anymore. One of the other things, never give up. That's Camille. That amplifies and typifies what Sheila always tried to instill to us. Never give up. And I'm glad so many of us in this country has never given up. Fearless. Beverly mentioned that she was a fearless warrior. That's absolutely correct. Principled. Mr. Ram Christopher mentioned that. And she was very, very principled. I know that for sure, entering Parliament. And at times, you believed in heckling and retorting to some of the comments coming over the from the other side, and of course they were quite witty and not as crass as it is now. And Sheila would always say, "David." She sat next to me. I sat next to her. "David, behave." And and of course you behave. So I don't think there'll be any recordings of the Alliance for Change bench from 2006 to 2011 saying any crass responses to the comments coming from the other side. Wife and mother and friend, of course, not just stated by Noel. And we all must give Noel and the family a great, great round of applause, because, so loaning her to us. I can recall Sheila would pack and go for the weekend. I don't know how they survive, because I know Noel can't cook. So, so I don't know, maybe, and we didn't have that many fast food restaurants those days. So obviously, very, very glad for that. Inspirational. Almost everyone that got upset that Sheila was an inspiration to them, and I can say that's absolutely correct. Those who knew her, the younger ones who didn't have the opportunity to meet her, she was inspirational. All in all these sentiments were true, and many, many more. I would like to just say another one which I think we didn't delve into as much: political activism. That is something we've lost, or we probably beaten out of us or something. But I can remember once, I can't recall which is the community, we were there on a Sunday, church. And Sheila said, "David, let's go to church." Sheila got up in the church, they recognized her, I think, and give the parishioners a lecture on politics. Started off by quoting 2 scriptures, and then proceeded for the next 10, 15 minutes telling them why they have to vote for the AFC and those things at the church. And so when she came off, I said, "Well, Sheila, you realize you're to church?" She just looked at me and said, "Yes, their souls need saving too." That is what I remember of Sheila. And that's what's missing, that fearlessness. Sheila would have gotten up anywhere, any occasion. You invite her to whatever, the baby christening, and she'd congratulate the parents and those things like that, and then explain to them the perils of the child growing up if you don't do this. And you laugh, but it's true. You remember. So she was, yeah. Yes, no. Yes, I tell you. And there's one more which Kemraj didn't mention, and I could mention now. In the middle of what we call the Troubles in Buxton, Sheila picked up Kemraj. He is a coward. And he's here. I'm talking to this here. So, and let us, yes. Now, when it goes this thing, I said, let us go to Buxton to share out the keys. The keys we went to distribute. Kemraj, tentative, but of course, probably shame that the woman was willing to walk into Buxton and he wasn't. Followed her, and they shared out the key and everything like that in the back dam. Met the infamous gangs that got away, and Sheila held them down on a conversation. Don't know, of course, against the law. It's it's against the Constitution for inmates to vote, but I didn't stop her. She sat down there to tell them, well, maybe if you get out, consider voting for the line. So, no, and these are all true stories. That is why we really, really miss. Yeah, it's only after, right? station. Wanted, yes, there's a wanted poster there. And the guy engaged them, in conversations and those things like that. Yeah. I also remember Sheila as an excellent debater, you know what I mean? And she did something which I'm doing right now. Always had small little placards, little cards. She never wrote a speech. You remember she would have like the Rolodex, and she would jot her notes down. And that's something, that's a habit I've picked up from her. I don't, good or bad, because of sometimes you, in the heat of debate, you may lose a card or two, but still remember that. So, folks, all in all round, magnificent lady, Miss Sheila Holder. We in the Lions for Change were blessed, for her presence, for her guidance, and for her support. We would like to thank the family for loaning us to her. The very last time, sorry, I must admit, the last time that I actually saw Sheila was at our campaign office in leading up to the 2011 elections. And we had, I don't know if you can remember, we had I think it was a fundraiser or a barbecue, you know, I mean, coming up to the election. Right, she was the prime ministerial candidate, and she came in. You could see that she was not 100%, but she still spent time engaging with everyone, because I think she was about to leave to go up for further treatment in the US, and we really appreciated that. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. If I can leave you with the younger ones, as Kamraj is always saying, that we are in the autumn, in the autumn of our years. He's in his winter. I'm in the December. Yeah, the rest of us are, yes, in the autumn of our years in this political environment. So if you have a chance, just take some time and reflect on how Mrs. Holder did it, and you will be in excellent stead. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming, and I invite you to have some refreshments with us and socialize. I want